Good morning, everybody. It's Friday morning, April 16th. Wonderful snowstorm up north here, and I want to welcome everybody to the committee. We're going to be taking up H 421, an issue dealing with definitions and of a humane officer. So we have our legislative council person with us that drafted this for the House. And we'll welcome Brianna. And I think we'll get right into the presentation. So would you like to start right with section 1 and go for it.
Okay, I will. Good morning, committee. Nice to see you all. For the record, Bryn Hare from Legislative Council. So thank you for that introduction. I thought I would just start by saying that H421 is really a result of a report, or actually multiple reports, I believe, from the legislatively created Animal Cruelty Investigation Advisory Board. That's a board that the legislature created in 2015 to advise you all about issues related to animal cruelty investigations. And they've issued, I think, at least 2 reports that made the recommendations that resulted in H421. And this bill did pass the House at the beginning of the last session, but I think was stalled because of everything that happened last year. So I'll just jump right into the bill. And it sounds like you don't need me to share my screen. So I'll just kind of go through it. And if you have questions on specific pages, just let me know.
Yeah.
So section 1 amends the definitions that are set out in Title 13. This is the animal cruelty chapter. So it amends the definition of a humane officer as it relates to animal cruelty investigations to really more accurately reflect the type of law enforcement officers that are conducting animal cruelty investigations. And to specify that designated Humane Society employees and animal control officers qualify as humane officers if they have completed specialized animal cruelty investigation training pursuant to statute. And we'll get through those statutes in the bill too that require the training. And it also provides that only animal control officers that are appointed by the legislative body of a municipality to act as humane officers may be humane officers. So they have to be specifically authorized by that legislative body in order to perform the duties of a humane officer. And then the next definition that's amended is the definition of a humane society. And that is amended to include all private nonprofit animal care agencies that are registered and in good standing with the Secretary of State of Vermont.
And now, do they have to have certain training, Greg?
The humane officers?
Yes.
Yes, and that's what we're going to get to in the next sections, is the specialized training that they need in order to carry out their duties.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, so section 2, this is now we're in the training statute of the animal cruelty chapter. So what the changes here do are to require animal cruelty response training for designated Humane Society employees and animal control officers in order to serve their function as humane officers. So it provides that these humane officers have to be employed by the Humane Society or the municipality in order to carry out their function as a humane officer. And once they're terminated from the municipality or the Humane Society, then they can no longer be authorized to perform those services.
Yep.
And then subsection C requires the Investigation Advisory Board to keep an index of people who've completed this training and update it at least annually. And then the next section, section 3, also talks about training. Now we're moving over to Title 20, the public safety title, to talk about trainings that are required for law enforcement officers that are acting as humane officers.
And the Animal Cruelty Investigation Advisory Board, is that housed at the Agency of Ag, or where is that housed?
That's within the Department of Public Safety.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't have anything to do with the ag, then it's public safety.
It's housed in public safety, but they are specifically required in their directives and statute to consider when the Agency of Agriculture should become involved in an animal cruelty investigation. So they are independent from the agency, but they're tasked by the legislature with studying when the agency should become involved.
Okay, well, yeah, okay. Chris?
Hi, Bryn. Nice.
Right.
I haven't seen you all session. Nice to see you.
No.
So the strikeout here strikes out deputy game wardens, humane society officers, and then sort of lists them, right? And maybe I'm going back, just catching up here, but I guess so as a humane society officer, that's been in law already?
Yes, it has.
And I'm sort of struck that it's not a capitalized term because it's an organization, right? I mean, it's a nonprofit.
Well, it's a defined term in the bill. So it's not necessarily a humane society. It could be another organization that provides animal care services.
Okay, so it's just not, oh, here it is. I'm sorry, it was just in the next page. Okay.
Yeah, maybe I should have gone a little more slowly in this first part because
no, it's me. I'm bad at Zoom. All right, so thank you. I'll read this and come back.
So I think really the changes here, already Humane Society employees can be humane officers, but the idea here was to clarify that they have to be designated by the Humane Society in order to serve the function of a humane officer. So the reason that the definition is broken out like this is to make it clear that law enforcement officers pursuant to this statute in 23 VSA 411A, that's a certain subset of law enforcement officers. I can give you some more information about that. The existing definition is really broad, and it includes like people who are tasked with parking meter stuff. So it narrows the definition of what actual law enforcement officers can conduct these types of investigations. And then it also just specifies that it can also be an investigator employed by the Attorney General's office or the state's attorney's office. And then subdivision B talks about the Humane Society employee. And those people are required to receive specialized training that's different from the training that law enforcement officers are required to receive.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to go to section 3 if we're ready for that.
Yeah.
So this is the specialized training that law enforcement officers are required to receive in order to be serve the function of a humane officer. So they have to receive training as a part of becoming certified as a level 1 or level 2 or level 3 law enforcement officer. They have to receive a training that's been developed by the Animal Cruelty Investigation Advisory Board and administered by the Vermont Criminal Justice Council. It removes the requirement that the training has to be 2 hours long. Just leaves it to the discretion of the board who's developing the training. And then subsection B requires that all Humane Society employees and animal control officers who are designated as humane officers. Oh, should I?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have numbers on the thing, but that first section, section 3, subsection A, it looks like 2 bodies have to approve it. I just want to make sure that's true. The Animal Cruelty Investigation Advisory Board and the Vermont Criminal Justice Council both have to approve that training. Is that correct?
Yes, so the board develops it, that's right, and approves of it. And then the council has to also approve of it and administer it. That's correct.
Thank you.
And I wonder, and you may not know this, I wonder if the House checked this out with the training people at the training council to see if, if they had time to do this, if they were going to do it online, or I wonder if anybody followed through on how this training was going to be administered.
So it's already being administered by the council. That's a part of existing law. I don't believe that they heard from anyone from the council, but Linda will correct me. She will know. But I don't believe they did. The changes here really aren't changes to the council or in their obligation. It's really an obligation on the board that they are supposed to be developing and approving of the training that the council is going to give.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No? Guess we're good to move forward.
Okay. So subsection B, still on page 4 there. This is the language that requires that those humane officers and animal control officers who are tasked with doing these investigations, they have to complete this cruelty response training by the end of 2023. And it also provides that the council shall provide these trainings only to humane officers that are defined by statute, and that they have to conduct these trainings periodically by qualified instructors that are determined by the advisory board. And then C allows the board to require, if it so chooses, periodic refresher courses to the trainings. And then lastly, subsection D, I'm on page 5 now, requires the training council or the criminal justice council to provide the board with a list of individuals who completed the training by January 1st of 2024 and annually thereafter.
And so that list is gonna be of trained people is gonna be at the Animal Cruelty Advisory Board. Is that where it's gonna be listed, or?
That's where it's going to be indexed. So the directive to the council is really to make sure that the board has the information that they need in order to comply with their requirement in section 2, that they keep and annually update an index of people, of humane officers who have completed that response training, both as required by section 2 and required by section 3.
Yeah, Chris, you had a question?
Yeah. This seems kind of like a long time out. What happens between now and the end of 2023? Is it just sort of the status quo?
So the council, it takes the council a while to administer the trainings to the number of people who are authorized to do these types of investigations. So I think that was a recommendation from the advisory board, that specific date. I don't think that it came from the council, but I suspect that the council would appreciate that because of how long it takes them to do these trainings. And also it gives the board time to develop the appropriate training and to approve it.
But why couldn't they just forward those names on an annual basis or quarterly basis to the council to have names added to the list? We haven't even gotten halfway through 21, and then we got all of 22, all of 23 before. Are they gonna develop, is the advisory board gonna start that list before that 24 date?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, the training should start when this bill takes effect, right? Or soon after, once they get, if they're already doing the training, there shouldn't be any lag time really before they get started, except for adding some new pieces to the training.
I suspect you're right about that, since the trainings are already happening. I'm not sure if if they're going to need a lot of time to develop additional parts of the training. That would be a great question for them.
I would think that, by January of 22, the ones that they're getting trained between July 1 and in December of 21, they should forward that list of names to the council to start forming that list of trained officers. I mean, I don't see the purpose of waiting until 24. Any other comments in regards to that, Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, maybe we could have someone from the cruelty board come in and ask them why they need that much time. I agree with you. Maybe there's a good reason, and I don't know it, but it would seem like if we put that date instead of January 1st, 2024, January 1st, 2022, to me, that would make more sense, but maybe there's a good reason why they need to push that out 2 years. I don't know.
Well, then, the rest of it's fine, and annually thereafter, so every January, 1st or 15th or something, they would forward those names on.
Yep.
So maybe it would be good if we could get somebody from the council as well as from the training place to see why they've got such a late date there. Are there other questions of Rear for this, on this bill? No. Well, thanks a lot, and if we'll get hold of the council and the training council as well as the board to check out any questions that we have with them. If there, Chris,
Yeah, I'm wondering, I don't know if this is a question for you, Mr. Chair, or for Bryn. We have talked about making tweaks to the animal shelter law that we passed and needs a little update, I think, for grazers. Is that your, I don't, is that
That will be me, because that's in the cruelty chapter as well.
Okay. All right, great. That's my question. More to come then on that.
Okay, I will stay tuned.
do we have a proposal on that?
Polina's got that one, I hope.
Yeah, we do have some language that we got. I'd have to dig it out, but we had some language that we got from NOFA and some other folks, basically saying that the current language in the shelter bill, saying that you had to be sheltered all the time, I'm paraphrasing here, made it really difficult for people to do grazing animals and grass-fed animals because they're sometimes outside, they don't necessarily have a tree to go under every minute. And they don't have shelter that they can get to immediately. So, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but they do have language that they would like us to look at.
But you don't have that yet?
No, I think I've got it somewhere in my email. I'd have to dig it out.
And so we could add that, you think, to 421?
I think so. Seems germane.
So who, did Maddie send that to you, Anthony?
I think so, yes. I could get in touch with her and ask her to send it again.
Yeah, because, yeah, we could do that next week. But it would be good, if, Bren had the information so that she could work on getting it, set up to fit into this bill.
Yeah. Well, I could get it forwarded to Bryn
Yeah.
later today.
Anything else, for Bren? No. Well, thanks a lot for being with us, and we'll get some other witnesses in, and Anthony will be getting that material on the sheltering. And we'll have Linda get hold of you for some time next week, hopefully, and get this wrapped up.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
nice to see you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
I doubt, Linda, if we could get anybody from the advisory board or from the council on for this morning. But we could plan on that for Tuesday. We've got Michael coming and with an updated proposal to our innovation board bill that we worked on yesterday. We might have time either, well, we don't know how long we'll be on the floor Tuesday, but we could certainly plan on some time Wednesday to take up any changes. So Anthony, if you could find that language and get it to her, over the weekend, we could probably look at this again Wednesday.
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah. Michael, I think he's got some stuff on the miscellaneous ag bill too that we'll do the first of the week. I don't think education voted our bill out yesterday. Chris, did you make that caucus last night?
Yeah, we talked about it. And I think the plan is to vote it out today. I don't know, I guess they've been dealing with a bunch of issues, but so it seemed to go over well, and he asked people to get in touch if they had concerns. In other words, moving towards a vote count. So, I know that he's going to want to wait till they vote before we get it pulled off. This is whatever. At this point, it's just like, get it over there. Maybe they'll deal with it next year, but
he's drag-assing on it to some extent. He's thinking it was sending it to us. I said, well, don't send it to us. I said,
it's on the floor. There's no sending it anywhere. It's on the floor in a dust pile.
And And approach was fine with the change.
Is that true? Now, he talked about the local food piece being added back in.
I tried to tell him yesterday that that's alive and well and sitting in approach, and we're gonna deal with that portion of it.
Good,
and
because-
the money.
Good, because we want that to start in September and not wait till this bill happens. So I'm glad to hear you say that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and so, I mean, we talked about it, I don't know, a day, 2 days ago, to a little extent in approach. And when we're gonna go through that list of projects and things we want to fund, and that's on that list. And it's about the thickness of a sheet of paper compared to the rest of the request. If you measured it in dollars, some are
Just a couple
asking for
pennies.
90 million and 80 million. And I mean, it's gotten out of hand. I don't know if they talked about that at caucus last night, but
Well-
they were supposed to talk to some extent about that.
Well, one thing we did talk about was the idea that committees of jurisdiction would be sending ideas along for the recovery money. And I said, well, I asked the question last year, we were clearly given 30 million, figure out how to make this work for ag. And there's not been nothing like that. And so it was a little chaotic. And I think there's still some ramifications as we're trying to figure out the timeline of it all. But my notion is, at a minimum, we should be helping set the stage, like some planning money, some, so that the next 2 years are successful, so that if we get infrastructure money, we can utilize that smartly. I don't know, but I don't know what the opportunity is for us.
Well-
it's not clear what we've been invited to do, but it is clear that window is closing quickly.
Well, we haven't been invited to do anything. And I brought it up 2 days ago, I think, in committee. Are we gonna be getting some money in ag to do ag issues with? And Jane was saying that they hadn't planned on doing any of that, that our farmers would have to apply through ACCD. Well, their odds of competing in that mess are not too good. So I didn't know if we ought to get ACCD in and try to cut a deal or chat with, if we were in Montpelier,
Yeah.
we'd get them in and we'd arrange for a certain amount of that total to be kind of set aside for ag, and they could contract with the ag agency to handle that portion. But I don't know if we could get them in and do that, the way we're operating. And I think we'll have to get Lindsay Curley in, or Joan,
Yeah.
is it Goldstein?
Steve, yeah.
Goldstein, get one or both of them on Zoom someday and try to cut a deal, and try to talk to them and convince them that ag is, they're still getting $17 for their milk, which is a disaster.
Well, I hope we will do that, because I can't, we heard every time we push around in what's holding up the farm economy and farmers, and they are all one-time costs. it's really remarkable. Unlike so much of what we talk about in this building, it's like, well, if we only had freezers, or if we had a place to congregate our food, so that the school didn't have to go to 12 different farms for carrots, things like that. I think these are all, there's a great opportunity for us to,
Long
without a
term.
ton of money, like what are we talking about? A publicly owned parking lot with a shed on it? I mean, that might be what we're talking about, right? It's like you heard that in Addison County, that they were doing a good job because they had something like that last spring that they could turn to. And anyway, I mean, yeah. So I hope we will do that. I hope we'll do it quickly. We don't have much time, and if we kind of browbeat ACCD into agreeing, I'm fine with that. Or if we carve out some money to send through ag, whatever, I'm not fussy about how we do it, but I think we should take advantage of this moment. It would be a shame to miss it.
Well, we know that economic development is working on housing stuff, and we're gaining people and losing housing every day. Like this morning on the news, they're saying we got 2,000 or 3,000 people that are homeless. Well, hell, 2 years ago we only had 1,000. Well, how come we're gaining and our population isn't changing a whole lot? So we aren't moving new people in to go homeless. Why have we lost all these houses? And they've been building houses steady. I mean, I don't know what the heck's going on with that homelessness.
Wow.
Our schools up here are starting to say they're full, that they can't have any more development. I'm sitting here going, we're down 500 kids from when I went there. Are they full?
Oh yeah, they're full. Our school down
they're-
here is down 80 kids and they're full. I mean, I
We're
think
seeing it
what
on
we-
Act,
They're full in terms of they might have to hire more people, right? That's the cusp. Like, isn't that what they
they
mean?
don't- so Act 250 asks, are you at do you have room for these kids? Like they have to
Yeah.
put an application, and they're just saying no.
No.
They don't explain it. And I'm like, I go, we're adding 9 kids. It's actually a commercial development. And I'm sitting here going, it adds 9 kids. Like, if you need to hire a teacher, the taxes on this one development should pay for the teacher. It's like,
Yeah, but we aren't gaining kids. We aren't gaining, I mean, we're building houses like,
Well,
we're,
Part of it is the density, right? We used to pack 8 people or 6 people into a house. You used to live with your grandparents, and people don't do that anymore. So the
hell,
same.
that went away 50 years ago.
Well, but it's been evolving. I mean, that has been a part of it. And in terms of homelessness, people have lost jobs. I mean, it's hard on the bottom. There's a lot of people real struggling, but
Well, tell me that if that's the case, why are car dealers selling cars? I mean, they can't keep up. Why are
well, the problem, Bobby, I
four-wheelers-
think is people are moving out of Bryan's county and your county into mine and Chris's counties. That's the housing issue.
That's true.
I
For
mean,
jobs.
the guy up here that sells ski-doos and four-wheelers and side-by-sides and all, it's the best year he's ever had this past year. Well, our economy may not be the best in the world, but if places like that are having the best year they've ever had, there's certainly some money coming from somewheres.
Bobby, the richest 0.1% own 17% of the stocks, and the richest 1% own 50% of the stocks. The bottom half own 0.7% of the stocks.
It's pretty
Thanks.
lonely down. That's where I am. and It's pretty darn lonely.
Yeah, I know where you are, mister. And so people, there are some people that have a boatload of disposable income and they're buying ski-doos and they're buying cars, and that doesn't reflect where the whole world's at. And that is,
No,
that is-
I don't think we're seeing a lot of what we're seeing is cheaper interest rates, so people can buy more with the same
That's true,
monthly
too.
payments they've had. So I
Yeah.
think I think they're leveraging assets and, well, I can afford $2,000 a month or $1,000 a month on stuff. And now that gets me an extra ski do instead of refinancing and only paying $800 a month.
Well, I'll just weigh in and back up our chair. I spent a lot of time with car dealers in the Rutland area. They're all doing extremely well.
yeah.
Part of the reason is the factories were shut down during COVID overseas. So the supply has dwindled to the point where there's a lot of demand for not a lot of cars, but also people are pretty flush with money right now. We've made it pretty easy for people to stay home and not work and still collect a lot of money. So, because Chris, if everybody, to use your percentages, I mean, how many cars can the 1% buy? They can only buy 1 or 2 cars. They don't need more than that. So it has to be more than just those people buying cars.
Yeah. But the
Yeah,
point is that
there's a
you could
couple of
have,
others.
you could be selling a shitload of cars and have a lot of poverty. They're not in conflict. And so, when you have people at the bottom, why is the economy doing well? Because we shoveled a bunch of money into people's pockets and they spent the money. These people don't save money because they don't have the luxury to save money. And they are buying some of that stuff. But the point is that when you put money into people at the bottom, they spend it because they have needs. When you put money to people at the top, they hoard it offshore. And what we're seeing is through different programs, we've pushed it to the bottom a lot, and that has shown up in the economy. That's why we have a surplus in revenues. But these are people that, in many cases, don't have savings, right? We know the bottom 50% of folks don't have savings.
The issue we have, though, is I could fill in Franklin County. I was just talking to some businesses. We could fill 250 jobs all over $20 an hour if we could get the people here.
Yeah.
Well, I bet.
Like tomorrow, get here and wait.
Well, the people and the skills, right? Right. No, this is a quandary. I mean,
K-Tech, a company up north here, they're looking to do a whole shift, I think, 25 people
Yeah,
They
almost
can't
40, I thought.
in
I thought they were 40 in Richford. In Richford.
And they can't get a soul to come in to take the jobs. And you know how much we owe, or no, I shouldn't say we owe, but how much people owe on arrears for light bills and how much we're putting into that from this money. It's millions. They owe millions in back rent, and we're trying to stabilize the owners of these rental properties, so because they still have mortgages to pay, millions and millions into that. So these folks that they aren't taking their good money that from the feds, their 1,400 and their extra unemployment money, and paying those bills, or some of them are, I'm sure, but not all. And I bet you there's $100 million down there in appropriations that's going to be going to landlords and the utility companies. And I don't mean just the light companies. The garbage people aren't getting paid. The trash people, I should say, they're all in all this money and
I'm a small landlord and I'm 8,000 in the hole on back rent.
we ought to.
Your tenant couldn't pay.
They didn't pay.
Apparently not. They didn't pay. I mean, they're very good. We just did the paperwork, so I'll get my money at some point. But I haven't seen rent from 2 tenants since January.
And
We-
did you get some of that paid up last year from the
Yeah,
stimulus?
they haven't paid since the system went in.
Yeah, I
So it,
mean,
but like you said, Bobby, I got a tax bill due next month, and if the
Yeah.
money might not come through, but the town's not going to give me a break on my $4,000 quarterly tax bill.
no,
It's
no, it's rough. But anyways,
Well, we ought to be looking into using our schools for job retraining and things like that. It's why I think we need to invest in the state colleges, because I do think
Oh.
there's a personnel gap, but there's a skill gap, and we ought to push people through those kinds of things. But
well, it's at the Highgate Airport up here in Franklin County. They're extending water and sewer in the expansion, but they're saying there could be 1,200 jobs up there in the next 10 years, like good paying jobs.
yeah,
It's just trying to find 1,200 skilled
Workers.
workers, and they might be here, but they might move from one company to the next, but it's still going to create, that kind of pressure. So it's, I would hope that, like the state colleges and stuff would be looking at how to educate or train 1,200 people to fill those eventual jobs.
well,
That
Well-
doesn't include, the service jobs that'll come with it that,
Yeah.
because there's 1,200 people working in a new industrial park, there's going to need to be a restaurant, and
maybe we could get Soroka, and instead of giving these people a tax break, we could lure them from different places with a little, we'll give them 3 months free rent or something if they move up here. Like, we got to recruit people. It's a real challenge. And anyway, who knows? The ag committee has already overstepped its bounds, but there are a lot of needs out there.
Well, we did set
But-
up the training for meat processors for the, Randolph or VTC. If they get going, sometimes we set up these programs, but the bureaucrats don't always push them. And I think that's why some states maybe have or started out having more full-time legislators, because then you'd check on this stuff every month. You'd call in somebody and say, "Oh, well, how many more people have you signed up for the meat processing plant?" And push them to get their butts going to get these people trained and into the workforce. But
So,
we can-
speaking
Go
of
ahead.
ag, though, I had a feed and fertilizer dealer just texting with me yesterday, and they said across the United States, they're having struggle finding drivers with CDLs, but even across the United States, there are 200,000 less truck drivers than there were pre-COVID.
Yeah,
Just struggling to find, even us, I work for Town of St. Albans, we're looking for mechanic, but we can't, and you're talking $25 an hour with a pension and healthcare, and we can't find a mechanic for that amount of money and those benefits.
so I don't understand why we have less trucks on the road. The boys at home here, they can't keep up.
Well, I think the
and-
point is you could get the trucks, is you need the driver.
Yeah, but where did they all go? They didn't all retire.
Well, that's what I mean. Are they, collecting benefits or something? Are they not choosing not to be in the workforce?
I think maybe, and the boys, they make big money, $1,500, $2,000 a week. But still, if you're a lazy truck driver and, you make 1,000, but you can stay home and get 800, 900 in unemployment and be home. But I don't know where they all went, but
We can't just choose to be unemployed and collect unemployment. I mean,
no, if they're offered a job, they're supposed to have to take it or get bounced off unemployment. I thought I've heard them say that.
absolutely.
Right. a good question for the Commissioner of Unemployment would be, how many of you bounced off? Because they refused a job.
But the
How did
truckers, I don't think they ever, did they get furloughed? We didn't stop trucking ever.
Oh, heck no, commercial trucking wide open. And, but I know.
Yeah, but Chris, if you're a sole proprietor that owns a corporation, you can lay yourself off.
Wow.
Say, you know what I mean?
It's a nice, it's a nice time to tell me that. Hey, I mean, this is a little bit away from what we're talking about, but back when I sold the transport business and sort of retired, about a year later, somebody said, well, how'd you like being on unemployment? And I said, well, I'm unemployed, but I didn't know anything about unemployment. Well, you know, when you sold out, you should have drawn unemployment for 6 or 8 months after you sold your business. And I said, well, what are you talking about? Well, hell, that's all legal. If you're unemployed and you sold your business and you're unemployed, you can draw unemployment. I'd never heard of that one, but you know, you learn stuff every day. I said, well, I'm a little late on that one. I've been unemployed now for almost a year, so I don't think I could sign up. But you know, people know this free money stuff pretty well. So next week we'll try to get Lindsay in or Joan and talk with them about a carve out, or just see what they've got in their minds in regards to ag. We got, did we do a 102 bill earlier, or
What do you mean?
soils, some soils
Oh, that's
bill?
the S102 is the chickens.
That's what I
Chicken
thought.
bill. But we didn't add anything into that about soil amendments and stuff, did we? Taxes?
Yeah, well,
or-
we tacked on the stuff about registering soil amendments, which I think the House is dealing with now. I seem to remember hearing some talk about that.
Because
Remember,
I had
the
a call,
feed supplements and all that stuff to make them legit.
yeah. But I had a call from a fertilizer dealer wondering if we jacked the fees on that a lot, and I couldn't remember that we brought in some different categories, but I didn't think we'd raised the fees on the stuff
We
that I
applied,
can remember.
we applied the fees, the same fees to some new stuff, to feed
Yeah.
supplements and soil supplements. They were,
Soil amendment.
yeah. So they had, you know, they were sold with 0 fee, and now they will be looped into the fee, but not from the store, right? It comes from the manufacturer.
Yeah, that was from Kerry Jagger.
Yeah.
That was partly how we paid for the chicken compost situation.
Yeah. So besides trying to get somebody from ACCD, and you know, we might end up not getting the commissioner, but we might get the deputy Brady. Mike, you guys know him?
Didn't he leave?
Yeah, Ted Brady's gone.
Oh, he left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who took his spot.
What, did he go up to Burlington, up to Farm Services or something? Where'd he go?
Doesn't ring a bell.
No,
I thought he went home.
he went to private sector somewhere, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be darned. He's the one that, we had him in, he gave us the idea, about, the Ready program that said, he was working in Washington at that time. And he said, I don't understand why Vermont leaves all this money on the table, federal money on the table. Remember, Brian? And,
I remember that.
so we said, hell, let's go for it. And we set up that Ready program and didn't even really know where we were gonna put the thing. And we set the program all up though. And we was talking one morning in committee, and I don't know who suggested it, but somebody said, well, we ought to give that to VHCB, and brought Gus in and said, we got a present for you. and God, they brought in millions and millions of dollars for our smaller communities.
He went to
Um,
PLTC, League of Towns. He's their director now.
Oh,
Ted
Vermont
Brady
League
did?
is-
Ted Brady did?
That's what Google tells
So,
me.
so he took,
Yeah, so he's-
what's her name? Karen Horn's spot?
No,
No,
No.
she's just a lobbyist. He's the,
I forget his
He's there.
name. There was a guy on top.
yeah. And then Tate Brooks took Ted's job.
Oh,
Okay.
Were they-
darn. Yeah, well, that's too bad to lose him, but it'll be a heck of a lot easier and better job than where he was. I mean,
Well, and
ACCD's been busy. I mean, crazy.
he's helpful he'll be good for VLCT. I mean, it'll help all of our communities across the state.
Oh golly, he knows where every pot of money is. Yeah, we should take that away from him. Pass a bill that he can't apply for any free money or something.
The feds already gave us a bunch of money. I think we're getting $2 million here in St. Albans town. I think cities get $2 million. It's
For what?
and that stimulus money.
Jeez.
We're gonna put a sewer system by St. Albans Bay to try to help clean up the septics down there. So we've never had the money to do that. So that'll be what we'll try to use it towards.
Well, I think Troy's getting 500,000 for our little town, so.
Yeah, you get
For what?
$99 a resident
We're
for
gonna,
the town piece, and then
Yeah,
I think you
we're
get
going to-
194 as part of the county.
we're gonna divide it up, $90 for every person, send them a check, wish them well. No,
More Ski-Doo sales.
we get
Well,
the
the one place-
economy.
Yeah,
I
I mean, we're
don't
looking
know.
at
Do you get subdivisions like a village within a town? Do they get a certain amount? And does it all go to the town?
I'll go to the town. The one part that's still up in the air to determine final amount is the county money, because we don't have county governments. I think we're making the decision here in the legislature on what to do with
Yeah.
that, but I assume county governments will get some for the courthouses and the sheriff's departments, but that should mostly trickle down to the towns, because that's,
They should get their money from the state and no, we did talk about that over in the other committee, and that county money is supposed to get divided into the town money. Divided up equally for the towns.
the other piece too, I think clarification is like, one thing like where the town of St. Albans looking at is does like a cell tower count as a broadband expansion? We have broadband, but we don't have cell service in part of the town. So can we help build a tower and potentially, recruit someone to go on it? Those are options as well. So it'll be interesting. And then the hopeful one that my town's up here hoping for is actually the infrastructure money in the fall, if it comes through with the roads. They got a lot of
yeah, but you read through that bill and the roads they get a small portion.
I know,
It
fortunately.
promoting rail again and gonna keep everybody good with rail. We're gonna be able to ride rail real quick. People are gonna really look forward to riding the rail.
Well, they're gonna open up the Montrealer again, which is good for Vermont. Like in St. Albans, I can get up to Montreal instead of taking a car. And when I lived in New York City, I couldn't take a train home. My parents would actually drive to Albany to pick me up when I wanted to come home to visit. At least now I'd be able to take it up to Burlington, because I couldn't afford flights home all the time. So I took the train to Albany a lot when I lived in New York City.
How
Well,
do
you
they do
probably
the passports with that, Corey? Do they check those before you get on the train?
The way it'll work, I think, is in Montreal, like you do in an airport, is when you get off the train, you'll have to do your passport
Okay.
at the train station. And then when you get back on the train in Montreal to come to the US, you'll have to have your passport checked then to come in. But that means, you and your partner, you and buddies could take a train up, catch a hockey game, stay
I was
the
just
night in
gonna say.
Montreal,
Yeah.
take the train
I'll come up
back.
and see the Canadians lose. It'd be great.
Easy now. And baseball's coming back up there. The Montreal group just bought into the Tampa Bay Rays, and they're talking about moving them there 40 games.
That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, and like,
It's gonna happen.
Oh, it's
like for you guys in St. Albans, that hour trip home from Montreal would just be terrible if you had to drive that in a car.
I don't mind driving it, but if you want to partake, in Montreal, it might be safer to take a train home.
Well, if you wanted to get rid of your car, it's a good place to go and park.
Yeah, leave it at the airport.
wow.
I-
We have gone way over.
Well, my local
Over
car
topic
dealership here sells 15 cars a year from people who had their car stolen in Montreal during normal years. They'll do 15 cars a year that have like replacement cars for stolen, they were saying.
Oh my
I mean, it's not a huge number, but that's actually quite a bit.
Well, 50, that's 1.5 over one a month. That's not bad.
I think Montreal is actually one of the highest auto theft rates in the world because they steal them, put them on a container ship, and they're out of country within they're out of Montreal within hours, and they're out of the country within a day, and they're in the Atlantic on their way to Europe.
Is there any? We're doing good this morning for our farmers. They're going to be really proud of us.
Well, we got to work on a trade deal where we can sell our milk across the border.
Hell,
Yeah.
they wouldn't let us take a truckload of milk up there.
They're
You
too
paid
smart
them.
for that.
I mean,
You
if you
know.
paid them for the milk,
I always think
No,
that's
they-
one of the missed opportunities for Northern Vermont, though, is we don't make French the language people should learn. Like I took Spanish in high school, and I look back now, if I could have become fluent in French, I'm effectively in St. Albans, a suburb of Montreal. I'm not with the new interstate system. I'm gonna be 55 minutes out of downtown.
Or a 55
No,
train commute. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
didn't. See, we had French over here in school.
We had it, but everyone at school pushed Spanish, and I get for probably the rest of the United States, Spanish is the more important language to learn. But up in our little corner, French is probably more important than Spanish. But they
That's
push.
why. That's why you have a local school board.
I know, but they push Spanish. I took Spanish for 3 years.
Anything else we want to get on the schedule for next week? Grady can be with us 3 different times. So, we've got some good time that we could spend with him if we have stuff we want to do. Chris?
I'm always eager to have time with O'Grady, but I don't want to lose track of the money. And one idea, do you remember last year we heard about, I think it was the land trust. It was maybe just at the end of our in-person time. Corey, you'll think this is interesting. I think the land trust had gotten a pot of money. I think I want to say it's $15 million, and it's a revolving situation where it basically helps with the flash sale when a farm goes out, and the farmer up the road gobbles it up, and then we have young people in particular who are trying to get into ag, and they're like, we can't buy anything. And I forget what, maybe it's not called the land link, but I think of it like that. It's pretty promising, I think, in terms of my desire to see us diversify and bring new stewards onto the land. And I just wonder if that might be something worth thinking about for some one-time money to beef up that fund. And because we do have this weird dynamic where we have a ton of farmers that are aging out, in addition to the pressures on the economies of dairy. And you have a bunch of people we hear that want to get into land and it's unaffordable and blah, blah, blah. And this is one of the only programs that exists already that I've heard of that tries to answer some of that riddle. Maybe that would be worth it. I don't know. It's that guy, Nick.
Yeah, Nick from Vermont Land Trust.
Yeah.
Nick's been good. A question I have, and I know we don't always think a generation ahead in government, but I've been thinking about the land trust. Like Chris said, we use land trusts now to help mitigate generation out. What do we do 30 years from now when those rights are gone and we're trying to again transfer that farm again another generation? Are we not thinking long term about these, and are we taking a revenue? Because I get now, like, a farmer might buy $1 million farm, let's say, but get 600,000 from the land trust, and then when they go to sell it in 30 years from now for, I'll just use $1 million again. Do they get the million, or can they only sell for 400? That, like, is the farm now ultimately worth less? Because we're gonna have to perpetuate again every 25, 30 years. So are we hamming ourselves, delaying something for 30 or 40 years before it becomes an issue?
I thought.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I thought the development rights were in perpetuity, that you've sold them.
They are.
So basically,
They are, but the farm's still worth something.
well, sure, but so the first time owner comes in here, and then it grows, and they sell it here. So this stays, in the public domain, or whatever, right?
But
So
we should have, I think, and I figured this out about 5 years after we did the bill. That we should have set that up in like 20 or 30-year blocks, that it would be preserved at a lesser value, of course, but it would be preserved for 25 or 30 years. And that's a whole generational change then occurs. And then the pop of the play, the son or daughter that buys it at the end of this time, if they so chose, could resell the farm, and you'd give the land trust or whoever first option to renew that development rights issue and sell it again, so that pop would have some money to retire with, and the young guy could get in at a reasonable rate. But we're too late for that,
but
So
if you did that, somebody has to pay, right? The point is, it's in perpetuity. If you pulled it out, then somebody would
But you
have.
don't provide any cash flow to help somebody, is my point. Is it's still pretty hard to come up with an initial down payment or something like that, even because, like you said, even if you're only growing this part, it's still growing, hopefully, for the farmer who's currently on it for their retirement someday. But we're gonna need to find a way 30 years from now to perpetuate the farmer we're helping buy in now, And if we've taken the development rights forever, like how are we gonna help fund that transition? And I know it's,
Well, okay, that's fair. But
and I don't know the right answer, but those are those questions that
sure.
governments aren't very good at thinking 20 or 30 or 40 years down the road. And
Well, but
so-
I mean, if this goes away, someone's got to pay for that,
Yeah,
right? So it's anyway, whatever. It is a quandary, and it's a quandary. You know, we could say the same around home values. Like,
well, it's not, I'm not saying I don't support what you're saying, Chris. It's more of just like, maybe it's also an opportunity to think about what we do, you know, how do we position this for the next 50 years so that we think about these things before, while we have time to think about them and not when it becomes an emergency.
well,
They,
that's why I like these strategies of, you know, the school meals, like not universal meals, but the local, like create these markets, right? That's what we heard out of New York. Like suddenly some local cracker maker is like, dude, that now I got my baseline 20% of this business is reliable from these institutional buyers. And now I'm going for it. If we had some aggregators, then people, you know, if we had a little more of the infrastructure, I think you take care of it because it becomes a more viable business, I hope. But there's a zillion strategies, you know.
Well, they're an anchor. It's like having an anchor tenant. It's you really need that one big customer to let you take that one jump when you're starting a business, or two decent sized ones. But you know, what's the general rule of business? Usually it's 20% of your clients do 80% of your business, and then 80% of your clients only do 20%, but it's, you know.
if we see Land Trust and Gus, they at VHCB, they do have programs set up to help the transition of farms to the next generation or to the next owner. That Nick, if we get them in, get him in next week on this other stuff, you know, he could also talk about what they offer, or how they offer deals to younger people to buy a farm that's already sold its development rights, and we can have, you know, a good discussion in regards to that. So
I'd really like that. And I was talking to Nick the other day, and I said, now you guys, I said, remind me, you're totally separate from VHCB, right? And he said, you're the only one that remembers that. And the reason that's important is the feeling around the State House is that VHCB is getting tons of money. And so it is quite different from Land Trust. They work in partnership all the time. But anyway, I think that is a great conversation for us to have. And it's, you know, I think it's important. It doesn't solve our dairy problem, other than it's potentially part of the off-ramp for dairies that are looking to get out or just retire or whatever, right? There's not a lot of new dairy farmers trying to get in.
well, it's so costly.
Dairy. It's so costly, and maybe they're going to goat dairy or something, but you know, we would be smart talking about next 10, 20 years to facilitate, you know, these conversations. We've been doing it, but try to push this money there.
Yeah, you and Corey would probably be around to measure if we did anything worthwhile, but Brian and Anthony and I will probably be fishing by then.
Well, better than
30
fish bait.
years is a lot.
In 30 years, I'd still probably be one of the younger members of the Senate. I'd be 60. So,
If I'm in the Senate in 30
Yeah,
years,
boy.
you can wheel me out.
I don't want to be here 30 years, because then I'll be like Vince Saluzzi. I've been there forever.
Well,
Or
As
Doyle,
long as
the 50 years.
old Benny used to weasel a lot of money when he used to have the deli for running institutions. He always brought a lot of money home. And, now we don't get squat for, you used to be able to go cut a deal with Benny. If you had some project in your district that really, really needed some help, you'd go see him and he would make sure it was in the bill. Now, I mean, I don't know, it's a lot.
Earmarks are back in Congress.
Yeah.
We'll see more.
Uh,
They say that's one of the ways to work on bipartisanship, truly, because the earmarks, they were given to everybody. And so
Oh.
it made the parties work together in a funny way. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, they had to agree.
Well, it makes sense. Like, hey, like water and sewer up in Highgate, hey, I mean, need $1 million and Chris may need $1 million or something. So then you all agree to your, the
Yeah,
thing, and it's
uh,
good, but it's, I get that.
Well, is there anything else that we need to chat about? I was looking at our,
problems.
I looked on the Senate
I was
calendar.
looking at our, pardon?
I was looking at the calendar today. So I think Anthony's bill is on notice. The only thing on the floor are going to be gubernatorial appointments, I think.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to let people know if you have any of those to report on. John Bloomer's looking for you to at least let him know whether you can do the report today or not. I don't think we'll do all 16 of them, but we'll do some of them. If it's a
I
commissioner
don't
or
think-
a secretary, you have to do a report.
Yeah, we don't have any that I know of.
No,
And
GovOps had, I think, 4. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure, I'm sure judiciary had some.
yeah,
We also, Chris, you'll be glad to know, we could talk to the Cannabis Control Commission appointees, whatever they're called, yesterday, so they could get confirmed.
Good. It seems like a half decent crew.
who?
Yeah, no,
who
they seem
got-
pretty good, actually. I thought they were pretty good group.
Who
There's
got
a guy-
on there? Any local guys that we know?
No, there is a guy who worked at the ag department, the ag
Yeah.
agency. He's the only one I'm not familiar with. I forget his name.
Kyle Harris.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
He's in
Yeah,
the-
when we did our tour a couple years ago,
Yeah.
I know Anson Tebbets was on the tour. We visited different farms in Addison County and Rutland County. And he was kind of like driving the car around to take us to different farms. He was a very good guy. And I think he's going to be an excellent board member.
so I take it Rogers didn't make it on then.
Nope.
He forgot to get his paperwork in.
Right.
Yeah, I know he kind of wanted to be on there, but
They interviewed, what did she say yesterday, Anthony? I think 90 people applied
yeah,
and they got it down to
Well,
11.
Chris was part of that group, right?
Oh, that's right. You were, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah. They gave us some 40 applications.
And you sent up 9 or 10 or 11 names?
Yeah, 10, I think. We
or
interviewed.
through the governor.
Yeah, so it goes to the governor, then the nominating committee, then back to the governor. And it gets weeded down at every step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if there isn't anything else, guys, we'll see you at 11:30 on the floor. I'll chat with Linda and we'll get these things organized for next week.
Bobby, another
So-
thing I want to point out, if anyone's driving around in nice weather, and a farmer of ours put on Twitter last night, it's true. There's a lot of green in our cornfields from all of our winter rye and our cover crops, and it's good for people to see that. People don't always understand, but that's part of our water quality, measures we've put in over the last few years, and our farmers are doing a lot to make sure good on all of that.
Healthy soil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Our cornfields up here are all green with winter rye and no, it should hold a lot of water, that's for sure, and help
Yep.
out.
All right.
So thanks, guys, and
We'll see you
Right
on the
on.
floor in about an hour.
Yeah, have a good weekend. Thanks